When you first start meditating, you might feel tremendous transformation at first, but after a while you may hit a plateau and feel like you're not really getting any more enlightened. So what do you do when that happens? That's the subject of this teaching on Parshat Va'etchanan. Before we begin, I would be so grateful if you would support by subscribing to the channel, giving the video a like, hitting the bell to get notified when we go live on YouTube, and if you can, leave a comment. I would love to hear from you. And now on with the teaching. There's a story of the Hasidic Rebbe, Rabbi Yitzchak Meir of Ger, that a disciple came to him once with a big problem. He said, "Master, I've been with you for 20 years. I've been trying to practice what you teach, and yet after these 20 years, I don't feel like I've made any progress at all. I feel like I'm the same schmo that I always was." And it's frustrating because with someone who does some other skill, like a craftsperson, a furniture maker, after 20 years of doing it, they would be better at it, right? Or at least if they're not better at it, they'd be able to do it faster. They'd be more efficient. But I feel like nothing has changed. What am I doing wrong? So the Rebbe paused for a moment and he said, "You know, it is taught in the name of Eliyahu Hanavi, Elijah the prophet, that a person should take on Torah the way an ox takes on a yoke. You know, the ox is brought out of the stall in the morning and it plows the field all day, and then it's brought back into the stall. And for the ox, nothing changes. It's the same routine every day. But the plowed field bears the harvest." So what does this mean? Obviously, it's not talking about oxes and fields. These are metaphors. The ox is obviously a metaphor for the disciple, plugging along, not feeling like anything is changing. But the field is also a metaphor for the disciple. Otherwise, it would be irrelevant. So what is this metaphor of the field? What is this aspect of our being that bears the harvest through spiritual practice? And why don't we necessarily have access to that? So there's a hint in the Parsha. Va'etchanan el Adonai ba'et hahi lemor. I pleaded with Hashem at that time, saying, "Adonai, Adonai, ata hachilota leharot et avdecha et godlecha." My Lord Hashem, you have begun to show your servant your greatness. So in this opening verse, Moses is pleading with Hashem to let him enter the land. Like the Chassid who complained to his Rebbe, Moses too is saying, "I've been leading this people toward the land for 40 years. Please let me at least enter along with them." The land is a metaphor, like the field. In relation to our spiritual path, it represents the fruit of the practice, that sense of coming home to oneness, to arrival. When we feel that angst of separateness, when we feel like an ox that goes on day after day with the same old routine, don't hold back. Be like Moses. Cry out in prayer. But then, listen for the divine response that's given to us. Rav lach, too much of you. Do not increase your words to me, badavar hazeh, about this thing. That separate self-sense, the me that thinks and speaks and acts, is the ox. The truth is, the ox will always be an ox. At some point, we need to give up on all this me, Rav lach, too much of you, and discover the aspect of our being that is silence. Al tosef daber. Do not increase your words. In that silence, we can discover the other aspect of our being, the deep, vast, boundless field. This is not to deny or devalue the ox in any way. We need the ox. We need to do things. We need to organize our lives. And we need to set aside the time for practice. But just as the ox cannot become the field, Just as Moses cannot enter the land, but must die outside the land, so too we must let go of this selfness and recognize the aspect of ourselves that is beyond the ox. The truth is, on the deepest level, we are already the field. Ale rosh hapiska v'sa einecha. Ascend to the top of the cliff and raise up your eyes. These are God's words to Moses to see the land from afar. And there he dies. Similarly, we can understand the goal with our minds, right? We can understand the teaching, the idea of spiritual awakening, but that is only a seeing from afar. To truly enter the land, we must discover what is beyond the ox self. Ale rosh, elevate the head, meaning recognize that beneath all the content, you are simple awareness, totally transcendent of your thoughts, feelings, and experiences. How do you do that? V'sa einecha, raise up your eyes. In other words, see whatever is arising in your awareness right now. Right now. Make that little shift from hearing me give a teaching to being the witnessing presence, the open space within which the sounds are arising. In this way, prayer, even the prayer of complaining, I'm not getting anywhere, when we make this shift, that prayer leads to silence. You can make that shift from being the ox to being the field, the vast field of silent presence beneath the thoughts, beneath the words. A rabbi once asked Menachem Mendel of Vorki, "Where did you learn the art of silence?" Menachem Mendel was about to respond, but then he changed his mind and said nothing. Shalom, I hope you've enjoyed this tour of awakening. If you'd like to go deeper with the letter AYIN, you can do the AYIN guided meditation. I'll link that in the description box. And if you've enjoyed, I'd be so grateful if you would give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment if you can. I'd love to hear from you. And click the bell to get notified when we go live on YouTube. And when you're ready, head on over to TorahofAwakening.com. There's a membership where we gather 5 days a week on Zoom for learning and practice, as well as classes for both children and adults, all at TorahofAwakening.com. Until next time, all blessings.